So I'm going to wait a couple minutes. It seems like people are getting a late start today. I've got some people I'm expecting to join us, so I'm going to give it another couple minutes before I get started.
Okay. And if it's okay by you, Lynn, I'm going to go ahead with a little pre-meeting talk.
Sure.
Welcome, everyone. If this is your first time joining us, everyone will remain muted throughout the meeting tonight except meeting co-chairs and presenters. Following the presentation, Lynn will call on members of the public wishing to speak. You can participate by going to the reactions icon, pressing the raise hand and not the wave or thumbs up button. And only press it once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you're calling from the phone, it's going to be *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once Lynn calls on you. The chat is for technical support only to help with Zoom software problems and not to ask questions of Lynn. Lynn will not see any of the chats. If you have an older version of Zoom, you'll need to go to the participants section where you will find the raise hand feature. Finally, please do not raise your actual hand or wave at the screen because we may not be able to see you.
So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and hopefully the other presenters and participants will join in. And so I'm glad to see Paul here because the first item, we've revised the agenda slightly, and the first thing that we wanted to talk about in the joint part of our with transportation was the bike lane on the bridge and its resurfacing. And so what I wanted to do, because the bike projects are confusing people, so I wanted to bring some clarity to when we're talking about these different bike projects, which are which. So in the picture, thanks to the Roosevelt Islander blog, you see the Roosevelt Island Bridge, and it is to your right. Now that has a designated bike lane on it, and the request from Paul and a group of islanders is to put a flat surface over the metal structure to enhance safety and the rideability of bikes on the bridge. We have been talking to DOT, specifically DOT in Manhattan, and I know that Paul has been in contact with the DOT in Queens. And my understanding is a request went from Kalos's office to the DOT in Manhattan over the last 2 weeks, requesting whether they have costed the process of covering the bridge so that we could then figure out where that item might go budget wise and into whom and which budget. So my understanding is that we haven't heard a response yet as to what is the best method to resurface the bike lane. And so we're waiting to hear back from DOT, and that we're hoping that as the weather gets warmer, we can help facilitate more attention on this project so that it can be used by our bikers as the weather gets warmer. So let me ask Max if you could unmute Paul for a second. I just want to find out if he's got any more information to add than what I just talked about.
No, that was very pleased to hear that. I didn't know that KDOS had done that. The only thing I'll remind you of is last summer when the Queensborough Bridge bike lane was being discussed and council members KDOS and Van Bramer agreed to fund what might have been $1 million then to make the south roadway into a bike lane. They also agreed to pay for this. To me, this seemed like this would be changed compared to that. Never got that in writing, but both offices did say yes. So for what that's worth, I don't think who pays for it should be an issue, I hope. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, no, so we are continuing to follow up on that. And I don't see Prince yet. John, let me introduce everyone to John O'Reilly. He is from the Roosevelt Island Operating Corporation. Is it your CFO, John? Could you unmute John, Max?
Go ahead, John.
I'm the CFO, Lynn. And I saw Prince. Prince is on. I saw him.
Okay.
So he's here.
Okay.
Yes, I'm on.
Oh, so Prince, are you ready with your presentation?
Yes, I am.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
Can I pull it up now? Do I have the screen share?
You should be able to now.
Okay. Let me know if you can still see my screen with the full screen. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, so my name is Prince Shah. I'm a senior project manager with Roosevelt Island Operating Corp. And I've been working on this Roosevelt Island bike ramp project since 2018. So what I'm going to do today is I'm kind of just going to fly through the presentation that was presented at the REACT board meeting on February 18th. So this presentation is already in the public domain. You can look it up on the REACT website. It's also part of the resolutions. So I'm going to kind of go through that quickly. There's a lot of details in here, but I want to get to just the main portions to really explain the project and answer any questions that anyone may have. And I commend Paul and the other folks that have been working on getting a dedicated and safe bike path on the bridge, because this project and that project will work really hand in hand. And then we have the third project that some of you may know, which is the bike lane project, which connects the Roosevelt Island Bridge to the bike ramp to the lane on the East Promenade. And I'll get into that briefly. So just by the way of quick background, and I'm not going to kind of go through, read through all of this. The presentation in its full entirety, it's an hour long. So I'm just going to fly through it. Please stop me if you have any questions. But we've been talking about the bike ramp, bike lane project on the island since 2015. In 2015, there was a discussion about bike safety onto the island and having a looking into if the motorgate escalator can be used for bicycle riders, or if the elevator is the proper way of using for bicycle riders, and so on and so forth. That's when we've seen that a lot of the bicyclists just end up using the helix ramp, which is quite unsafe for the bicyclist. And From all of that and many other studies, the 2014 Queens Transportation Study, that was an effort by Cornell Tech. That was an effort by the community to have more biking on the island, which is kind of where the city bike eventually came from. So a lot of those efforts kind of combine into REAC working with Cornell Tech at that time to hire an engineering firm to do a preliminary study on if a bike ramp is feasible on the island. So they did kind of geometric studies to figure out if a bike ramp was feasible. We took those studies, applied for a New York State grant, where we received a 2.93 million grant, $2.93 million grant to create a project for construction of the project. Based on the grant, we hired an engineering firm to look into and really do the study and design the plans. Since then, we've done some walk-in talks. We have done updated about this project on the REDAC meetings, our ops meeting, and then recently in our REDAC meeting and the board. So that's kind of the brief overview. This is kind of the walk-in talk that we had done. But just zooming, I try to focus on every project and zooming out and zooming in, right? Zooming in, what's REAC doing, or what Roosevelt Island doing? But really zooming out, what is New York City doing, and what are all our 5 boroughs doing? It's very important to note that with the New York City DOT's Green Wave plan, there's already a plan to expand the bike lanes everywhere around us, around Roosevelt Island. So there is an expansion of network of bike lanes in Astoria, in Brooklyn, even in Bronx. I don't think the Bronx portion is part of the Green Wave plan, but it all is connecting eventually, to Roosevelt Island. In 2020, Mayor de Blasio announced plans to construct 26.9 miles of bike lane. In 2021, recently, the mayor announced Bridges for the People to connect and create bike lanes on the Brooklyn and Queensborough Bridge. So around us, zooming out, all 5 boroughs are concentrating on bike lanes, and more so, making the bike lane safer and not just creating a lane that is not designed, right? So all of these are design lanes. And what I don't mention here, and I think what's evident since last year in the pandemic, is the biking activities in every borough has increased, right? And you might have heard of how you couldn't find helmets. You couldn't even find bikes last year. If you go to Target or any of these places, helmets were gone, bikes were gone. And I personally experienced that. So all of this is happening around us. And it's not that we're working in a vacuum, but we're working to really future-proof our island to the fact that there will be biking. If we like it, we don't like it, that's a different story. There will be biking on the island, and that's facts, right? So moving forward from that and taking some other local data, the only local data we have right now on the Roosevelt Island in terms of biking, besides just knowing that there is a biking activity, hard data is city bike. So we looked at the city bike data for Roosevelt Island. This is based on their open data, is on their website. And we saw that between July 2020 to January 2021, there are on an average of 2,480 bike rides on the island per month. So there is an increased bike activity. And this is not just tourists coming in and riding the bikes. You'll see a lot of bike riders are coming from off island, going to Motorgate, docking at Motorgate, or taking the bike from Motorgate and then traveling across the island. So that is a significant portion of the people. We also conducted a survey in December of 2020 regarding the bike safety on the island. So per the survey, 57.5% people were interested in a bike ramp that was separate from the current helix. And then we looked at the bike lane as well, because we can't just talk about a bike lane without talking about we can't just talk about the bike ramp without talking about the bike lane, because they go hand in hand as a project and as an idea. So the main idea behind this kind of a larger move is create a safe corridor of bike lane on the East Promenade, away from the main street and away from the vehicular corridor, as I'm going to call it, on the main street. So that being said, I'm going to kind of go through the background quickly, but I've talked about where the project started. 2014 was a study. Then we did a feasibility study, and then we hired Dewberry engineers for the project. Budget is 4 million. 2.96 comes from the TAP grant, and the REOX match is a million and 1.04 million. The goal of the project is, again, a safe bike ramp. It has to meet all the DOT guidelines. It has to meet the AASHTO guidelines. It has to create a safe connection that connects the Roosevelt Island Bridge, connects the bike lane, and then it keeps bicyclists away from the Main Street corridor of vehicular activities. And on top of all of this, it has to provide not so much the bike ramp, but the bike lane, which I'll talk about in briefly, has to provide a safe pedestrian walkway as well. So just looking at the bike ramp, we've done a couple of configuration studies, looked at the AKRF study, and then where we've kind of end up with is, we've looked at a couple of studies. I'm going to just kind of fly through some of them, but looking at the AKRF study for the bike ramp, we realized that, so AKRF was hard to do a conceptual study. So they didn't have actual surveys. That was not their scope of work. So their scope of work was not to survey the ramp, survey the area. Their scope of work was to really look at conceptually what can fit in this zone, can it meet the guidelines. What they had done when we did our surveys on site, and we looked at the geometric dimensions of the ramp. We received some as-built drawings from the original designer of the ramp. We realized that AKRF's layout did not work and did not meet some of the clearances. On top of that, it took out a portion of our East Promenade, which has to be used for emergency service, and it has to be always open and accessible for emergency service. So we looked at a couple other studies. Most of these studies either did not meet the AASHTO guidelines or did not meet our funding guidelines, which required us to create a bike ramp. So we looked at a couple other studies. One of the study was creating a bike ramp on East Waterfront. This layout of the bike ramp was taking away from a public space, which is the public plaza space, which is the stairs right here, and we were going to put a bike ramp in that area. Now, look at kind of zooming out again, speaking of the idea of zooming in and zooming out, looking at the larger capital goals for the island and the larger goals of this area, we realized that if we put a bike ramp here, A, it creates a dark, dingy space. B, it restricts the area from any future development. So you take out this public space, you put this concrete structure of bike ramp, and then what will happen is it'll make the Motorgate atrium, which is used for arts and other public activities, unusable. So we moved on from that layout, and there was a lot other further studies. I'm just trying to be brief here. We moved on from that, and we looked at this layout, which is the Helix ramp, a ramp within the Helix vehicular bridge. Looking at that ramp, or looking at this Helix ramp, Helix within a Helix idea, we realize, and what's evident is this layout will not affect our Motorgate atrium. It will not affect the public space, and it will only affect the areas that are marked here in blue. And eventually, you'll see it in further slides, there's a net gain of public space. There is more public space that is usable than it was if we had gone through the idea of ramp on the East Promenade. Again, going back to the ground level, you'll see that the area of the Helix within Helix is within the blue zone, away from the usable public space of Farmers Market, the Motorgate atrium, and then the area that is kind of very active on Saturdays where we have Farmers Market, and during even weekdays where people are going into the garage or going to Food Town, etc. So looking at this layout, existing conditions, at the ground level, we have this unused space where currently it's being used as REOX storage area with or storage containers. And also it's used for essentially just parking during blizzards and such, when we ask people to get off the main street and park, within this area. There's also some crabapple trees within this area that are that have significant root rots that are towards the end of their life cycle, and they are kind of at the edge of the retaining wall that needs to be removed in order to have the columns of the new bike ramp. We have looked at transplanting these trees, but because of the age of these trees, they're almost guaranteed to not survive. So instead, we're planting in kind six other trees, I'm sorry, within this area to make it more accessible to the public. So you'll see that in the next slide, which is here. So we're taking out the retaining wall, where right now the green spaces, you can see it, but you can't really access it. No one goes up there and hangs out up here. Instead, we want to make a space that is more accessible. So in this cross section, you kind of see the idea of where the retaining wall was, where the bike ramp columns end up, and then this really accessible green space. So this area, we see it as a plus to the project and to the community and to the green space of the island, where we are expanding on the green space. We're introducing these pink flowering trees, that are going to be healthy and last a longer period. And what we're trying to do is we are making sure that the culture of the island of having that cherry blossom festival, the pink flowering trees, is still intact. And you'll see that rhythm and that idea along in the next couple slides. So now kind of zooming out again, speaking of the idea of zooming out and zooming in, zoom out, you see that there's a Roosevelt Island Bridge where Paul and some other community members are actively working on getting a bike lane or a safer bike lane. And you will see that the bike lane, as it comes towards Roosevelt Island Bridge, turns into this dedicated bike ramp, and kind of really reconnecting to the idea of the bridge connection, where we're trying, Paul and other community members are creating that safer bridge connection. Past the Roosevelt Island Bridge, this project aims to create a safer bike lane connection on the plaza, on the bridge plaza itself, or the Helix Plaza. You will see the idea of juxtaposition, I should say, of open canopy versus closed canopy. So as you're coming onto the ramp and as you're going down, and I'll walk you through that journey, you will see the connection between biking under a canopy versus looking at these green trees, looking at the water, looking at the future bike lane, and really reconnecting to the island and understanding the culture of the island as you're going in. So now, walking you through the journey of the project. On the plaza level, we have the bike lane, dedicated, or I should say marked bike lane that leads into the bike ramp. This, for the purposes of illustration, we're not showing like the stop signs and the bike, bikers only or bike turn left, those signs. But there is another traffic study that's performed by the traffic engineers, and there is a whole traffic layout. Something to note, this is a DOT, the project has to be DOT approved. So there is DOT standard safety precautions and measures on the whole project. So as the biker approaches towards the bridge, there'll be a stop sign that will stop. There would be a rumble strips along the way, along as the biker goes towards the bridge. So they won't be able to speed down towards the bridge or speed out of the bridge and not be able to stop. There'll be rumble strips that really calm the traffic and work towards slowing down the biker as they come towards the stop. As you go down the ramp, you'll see that there is connections of the cherry trees or the pink flowering trees. Our idea and the goal was to really create a softer edge as you're coming onto the Helix. This is our first introduction of the island, right? So there's an introduction at the tram, which is amazing. There's introduction at the ferry. There's introduction at the subway. But for vehicular traffic, for a biker traffic, for a pedestrian traffic coming from Long Island City. This is our introduction. So this project aims to start the project of really recreating and rebuilding the introduction to the island as you're approaching the island to onto the bridge. So we want to make sure that this kind of dark concrete structure, this cold structure, has a soft edge and the softer trees and landscape. And that's what we are aiming to do here. And to make sure that as you're biking down, you're either you're welcomed home, and you're connecting to the trees that you as a resident, I as a resident, we all love. There's also going to be tree bollards that are going to create safer zone for bicyclists. There will be also delineating lights. So as you're coming down into this ramp at night, you'll be able to see where the ramp is and go down on the ramp. So as going down, now you're connecting to the trees, as I was talking about before. You're connecting to the water on the other side, and you'll be able to see the bike lane that's part of this second part of this project. Going down, you're connecting towards, you're going down at a slower rate, and you're really connecting to all these landscape elements of the island. As you come down, you will see that there is railings on either side. That is really to stop, the bikers kind of going out of the bike lane, bike ramp, and then going off on the sides. And there's also a landscape edge that is within that zone to create a softer edge and also create a safer lane. And as you come down on the ramp, as you approach this area, the rest of the bike ramp turns into essentially the bike lane, and it is all at grade level. So as you're coming down in this area, you'll see that all of this is almost at the grade level, and there are multiple rumble strips to ensure that you slow down and you're not kind of just spinning out of the bike ramp and onto the bike lane. So you're really slowing down, and there's a slight descent as you approach the bike lane, and there's this like nice soft kind of the curve that brings you onto the bike lane. From the outside, if you're walking on the sidewalk on this view, you see that there's a minimal impact of this bike ramp onto the island and onto kind of the quality of the island. And on top of that, we're actually adding a lot of the green space. So you'll see the green space I was talking about before. Now this is accessible to public. You can walk onto it. We see a lot of, there's a lot of kind of island groups that have, the one example that comes to mind is I Dig to Learn. I love everything that they do. So, people, the community members, like, folks who run I Dig to Learn can really come here and, create programs with the kids and the community within this green space. And the same goes for the outside of the green space, where we create kind of the softer edge. From this view, you will see that from kind of zooming out again, the idea of zooming in and zooming out again, you will see that the ramp itself creates the least obtrusive structure. We have tried very hard to keep the ramp as kind of the lightest touch as possible, to keep the railings as light as possible in an effort to create the least visual barrier to the island. So keeping the ramp in this area, the idea is to create a bike ramp that is this massive structure, essentially, or as perceived as a massive structure, but it's hidden within this other structure. So you don't really add onto the island in terms of transportation or infrastructure, but you're still adding a positive onto the island without taking away some from the island. That's pretty much it. I can take any comments, questions.
Yeah, thank you, Prince. I just wanted to open this up to my co-chair from the Transportation Committee. Craig, did you have anything you wanted to ask?
Let me see if I can find Craig. Oh, he's unmuted.
Hello. I want to just thank you for the presentation. I think I can see how challenging it must have been from an engineering perspective to be able to figure out how to achieve this in a context-sensitive manner, and I think you've done a great job. I guess the one question that I have thinking about this is there a lighting element that's going to be incorporated into this?
There is. So the lighting element is, so you'll see these kind of vertical, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say pencil stick kind of lights that are on the top area, and they kind of follow all along up till the first bend. And once you get to the second bend, let me see. We have not shown it in here just to, kind of sometimes lighting and those kind of elements are not exciting, quote unquote. So we try to keep it out of this rendering, but there is a lighting here that goes through all around. And then as you approach the ground level, there's another, you'll see in here, like these pencils kind of structured lights that guide you and delineate you to where the lane is.
All right, great. Yeah, I was just thinking how at night it could be particularly dark under there, so that sounds good. And just, I guess, from a network connectivity standpoint, I know that obviously we know there's progress being made on the bike lanes on the bridge itself. I assume that it's just a matter of how the paint is in terms of directing people into the right lanes and making sure that pedestrians are separated from cyclists, not on the ramp, but I guess on the bridge, because I guess pedestrians are, is it going to be clear that it's not meant for pedestrians? Because I can't imagine that it would be safe for a pedestrian who's not going to see a bike coming down the ramp, circling around.
Yeah, so let me see if it shows up in this rendering. One of the goals of the project was to really clarify the pedestrian access way onto the island. So right now, the pedestrian way is actually through an entrance here.
Right.
Before working at RIAC, and I've been to the island for a very long time. I used to hang out here in high school. So I have been to I've hung out on the island for a long time. I never knew there was an entranceway into the motor gate because I never saw it. So, and that is a reason. There's no proper signage there. There's no proper pathway leading onto the atrium. So this project is kind of goes hand in hand with other capital projects that we are currently looking at in terms of how we can improve the access and the visibility of going into the atrium. So part of this project, we're improving all the pathways. So there are actually new pathways that lead you onto this area. There's going to be new curb cuts, new access ways to ensure that you actually see that there's an entranceway here, and then there's an elevator inside that takes you down. And there will be, again, signage on this side that shows you that, this is for bicycles only, and then this is for cars and such.
All right, great. I very much appreciate those responses. Thank you very much. And thank you, Lynn, for hosting this presentation.
Thank you for joining us at the very last minute, Craig, and I really appreciate, as always, your input. Before I open this up to questions, what I did want to comment is, having been someone who has seen all the presentations since 2015, I do want to say that and you briefly saw some of the iterations that this concept has gone through. And I want to say that some of the key things that were issues from Islanders have definitely been addressed in this presentation. And I just wanted to thank them for one of the big issues was the tree question in that circular area with those old trees. I think that was a great, you headed those questions off with a great presentation on what you plan to do with that. And some of the issues in terms of how to get bikes down there safely and who should be on this ramp and who shouldn't be, I think have all been answered in your presentation. So I definitely want to thank you for that. And I'm going to now open it. So I apologize to everyone for not getting the agenda approved in advance. And I wanted to make sure, because I knew that Craig had some time issues, I wanted to throw us right into the presentation. So after we're done with the presentation, I'll go back to doing our normal committee meeting things, but I wanted to make sure we got this addressed as quickly as possible. So I'm going to open up to questions, and the first hand I saw up was Billy. If you can unmute Billy, please.
Sure, go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much for this presentation. I thought it was very helpful. I have a quick question and then maybe one or two, not as quick. When you say DOT approval, am I right to assume that's the state DOT?
Yes. Yes.
Great. And then do you mind going to slide 25, please?
This?
Yep. So am I correct that the ramp is sort of hitting where the current city bike stand is? And if so, how does that sort of, is that a conflict, or how does it relate, spatially to where the city bike rack is?
So when we installed the city bike in that area, we had a discussion with city bike that, this is one of the options, that this bike ramp layout is one of the options that we were exploring. And at that time, we really only had developed kind of a schematic like that you see here. This, so they are aware that this area does impact city bike, but it does not. There's still enough space. So let me see if I can. Where's the sidewalk? There. Okay. So there is still actually space behind the bike ramp that is accessible. So the city bike space is between this column, this column 1, 2, and I think the 3 in the back. So it actually is within the 3 columns that you see here. It doesn't come past the inside column. So there's still space for city bike here. But we had discussed this with city bike. So they do know that if they need to make adjustments, they are aware that they might have to make adjustments to move the city bike inwards or outwards or left or right, not impeding any of the sidewalk space. So they are aware of it. And the reason for actually having the city bike where it is now was to make sure that we create this culture that, look, you can take the city bike, and there's actually signs. There's signs that point towards basically this pathway right now to bring the bikers towards the east promenade right now. Does that clarify the answer? Sorry, I kind of mumbled.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It does clarify somewhat, but do I take from your answer then to be it's possible the city bike stand could get moved into Main Street, into the actual street if it were moved?
No.
As you say, inward?
No, inward or outward within the same area inside of the sidewalk, not onto the main street or onto the sidewalk. So they'll still be within the same zone. When I say inward and outward, I'm saying really 10 feet, 15 feet inside or left or right, not so much onto the sidewalk or onto the street. Because the last thing we want to do is then take away the street in that area. It's a very busy, it's a busy space.
Yep. Well, that was going to be my last question, which is, and forgive me if you covered it in the presentation, with respect to adding a bike lane on Main Street, I saw your survey responses. Where are you, if anywhere, on that sort of discussion? Because obviously this ramp leads right to Main Street, which could arguably make it a good candidate for a bike lane, although I know that it would be a hot topic for debate. So is that something RIAC is contemplating?
Yes. So what we are contemplating, and the goal of this project, is to take bikes away from the Main Street, not onto the Main Street. So what you will see here, let me see if I have here. So what you will see here, this is our East Promenade, right? This is the West Promenade facing Manhattan. And then we have this one Main Street on the island. The goal of the project is to create a East Promenade bike lane corridor that is away from the Main Street. We want to make sure that the bikers come onto the East Promenade, where there is a wider space for bikers to ride, the pedestrians to walk. So the goal of this project is to bring the bikers onto East East Promenade. So you'll actually see the bikers come onto the East Promenade and not onto the Main Street, which is here. And this is kind of in line with the 2014 kind of the Queens Transportation Study. The goal of that was also, and the suggestion was to bring bike lane onto the East Promenade as well.
Okay. Could I see, last thing, the visual of how the bike ramp then connects to guide people to the East Promenade?
Yep. So as you're coming down, here, this is a better. So as you're coming down on the bike ramp, you're slowed down by all these rumble strips, and then this project and this rendering almost stops here at where the bike ramp ends, but where it ends is where the bike lane begins. So this pathway turns into the bike lane. And there's another project. So if you actually go to REACT's website and go to look at the REDAC of February 17 meeting, REDAC meeting, you will see it's almost an hour-long presentation, or maybe a 2-hour, that talks about the whole project and how it fits into the goals, the capital goals of the agency, and how the goal is to connect to every public space that is on the island. So you'll see that the bike lane, and actually, you know what, let me put up that graphic quickly. Give me 1 second. Let me open up the presentation. As well, while we're here, I might as well show you that graphic so it's easier to understand.
And while you're pulling that up, I don't know if you said what the timeline is when you would like this to be completed. I know with DOT approval, that makes it hard to say, but do you have a rough idea of the timeline?
Yes. The construction will begin in fall of 2022 for the bike ramp and bike lane. And the project is expected to take 2 years. So it will be constructed by 2024.
Okay. I'll say that's a little disappointing, 2 years. I know that's probably not in your control.
Yeah,
but
it's DOT. So when we find out the kind of the timeline of how long the project takes to get approved, that was it was kind of a bit shocking to me of how long it takes. But that's because we have federal funding, we have state review and such. So let me just show you this graphic, and this will help.
Sure.
I think everyone that's here might answer some other questions. So you'll see that the bike ramp in this kind of right side of the screen brings you onto the bike lane, and then the bike lane is all along the East Promenade, and the goal is to create pedestrian, so you can take your bike and then walk your bike to the main street along the breezeways there on Roosevelt Landing or along any of the public crossways. But rest of it is the clear bike lane. And this presentation is on the website with full explanation, but to just show you some quick graphics, this is kind of the idea. So there'll be a bike lane on the promenade that will connect you to the rest of the island. Sorry, rest of the East Road, East Promenade, and then connect you eventually to the road that leads to South Point Park and Fort Freedoms Park.
Great. Well, thank you. I think this is a really important and a good idea. So thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
So I'd like to move on to if you could unmute Marco.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. First of all, I had to say this is a very thoughtful and sensitive project. I congratulate that idea. Probably what I would say is, in my vision, is rather to end it in small section, it should be a circle around the island. And that will be a beautiful idea because the island offers these kind of the solutions. And we strongly support where you are an extremely sensitive person. I wish to hear you more in the meetings. When you said do not affect the automobile section, the public space, the farmer markets. So you are a person that you are not antagonist in the system. You allow everybody profit in a section that we had to profit in this section. The Roosevelt Island, I think they offer great opportunities to develop these bike lines. And I think it will be a wonderful idea if you complete the circle of the city, of the island, I'm sorry. And then I think people, they will be more attracted to the island to be in there. And I think by itself is gorgeous. I see some idea that probably there are some vacant spaces that you can profit and do better ideas for the cyclists. I think they deserve. We have to promote exercise. I think it's great. The whole system is great. The whole island offered these opportunities, and we had to take advantage of that. The only thing I'm going to say is thank you, thank you. You did a wonderful job, and I hope that you include more projection in the island, because I think this is one of the great assets that we can have it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on, and thank you, Marco. And I believe that that's something that we've addressed in the past and that they're looking into, as you see Prince shaking his head, yes.
Yes.
Next on the list is Sharon. You can unmute Sharon.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you, Lynn. I have a couple of comments and also a couple of questions. First of all, Paul Kirkler, thank you, thank you, thank you. And everyone else who is involved in trying to have a flat surface on the Roosevelt Island Bridge. I'm in awe of your efforts. I really appreciate it a great deal. I have biked across that bridge often, and it never really occurred to me, I'll be perfectly honest with you, to move in the direction that you have in trying to get something flat on the surface of the Roosevelt Island Bridge. I just didn't think that there was anything that could be done. So I really want to tell you that I'm watching you, I'm praying for your success, and thank you so much for your efforts. And to Jane Swanson, Cornell Tech, as well as RIAC. This is a wonderful, wonderful presentation. I just cannot believe that Roosevelt Island is going to have something of this caliber. And I'd like to echo and repeat Marco's comments and Billy's comments as well. This is absolutely a beautiful presentation, visually beautiful. I love the minimal impact that it will have on Roosevelt Island, and I really want to thank RIAC for moving forward with this, as well as Jane Swanson and Cornell Tech for their efforts in moving this forward. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Two questions. In the presentation, I am really happy that underneath the bridge, underneath the helix, and at the Roosevelt Island Bridge level, that space is being reactivated, if you will. I love the trees, especially on the upper level, and of course on the lower level as well. What I did not see was seating. And I am thinking that seating should be incorporated to further reinvigorate that area on the upper level as well as on the lower level. I could really see people taking advantage of the seating. So that's my first question. And my second question is, I am interested in knowing whether or not there has been any discussion around enforcement. More specifically, I would be very much opposed to forcing cyclists off of Main Street and onto the bike lane. And I'm interested in hearing whether or not there has been any discussions around that. I'm hoping not, because it clearly would not be helpful. It would not be useful, because I also see these cyclists patronizing our small businesses, which I know that everyone will agree with me. Our small businesses need all the help that they can get. And it's been proven that cyclists spend money at small businesses wherever they go. So those are my two questions regarding seating, and also regarding enforcement, which I hope that there have been no discussions. And that's it. A beautiful, wonderful presentation. And thank you so much, everybody, for all of the efforts that have been put to this project. And 2 years cannot come around soon enough.
Thank you, Sharon. And I'm going to move next to and on to, could you unmute Lydia Tang, please?
Oh, I have two questions.
I'm sorry. If Prince can answer those questions, and then we'll move on to Lydia. I'm sorry,
Yes.
Sharon.
So your question number one was
I just heard so much positive input that I kind of forgot the two questions, so forgive me.
So your question one is regarding seating, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. And that is why in the bike lane, so this, when we created this presentation, we didn't stop there, right? So we are still designing this further. And one of the things I've asked our design team is to create seating along the way. And the idea was, one of our strongest partners is Bike New York within this area. And they use this kind of zone in the basketball court area to really teach kids how to bike. So what we want to do is create almost a rest stop area, or a node that can connect, the Bike New York portion of the program on the island and the bike ramp. So with that in mind, we're creating or discussing right now some seating areas right at the edge, at the end of the bike ramp. There'll be some seating areas. There'll be drinking fountain within the zone to create kind of a resting stop before you get onto the bike lane. Because the idea again of the bike lane is to connect all our public spaces. So we want to make sure that you have a spot to, you've seen all these beautiful trees, you've come down and descended on this beautiful bike ramp, and you've connected to the water, the trees, the beauty. But now you want to sit down and have water, have a snack. You need a space for that. And that's what we're doing here at the end. And the other point is at the plaza level, there should be seating. But what we are actually exploring is, instead of creating seating at the plaza, creating a space somewhere within the Watergate atrium that is this beautiful, inviting atmosphere where you can go in, and then actually, if you actually go in right now and see the architecture, it's beautiful. As someone who studied architecture and architect kind of geek into design, I love that space. And so we want to create something beautiful in there. So we're working on that. The second question you had was, are we forcing bicyclists to go onto the promenade, and how it will affect the Main Street businesses? So I can't speak more about the enforcement. Chief Brown actually is actively working with his team and the bike safety committee, and understanding what should be done on the on the main street to enforce proper bicycle riding and ensuring safe bicycle riding. But goal of the project of bike lane is not to take away from the main street. It's actually really to enhance the experience of going to the main street. One thing that, this is because this is preliminary graphics we don't show is, let me see, right here. So one of the main concepts of the bike lane is while it's on East Promenade, it's so you can kind of just travel across and check out all, look at all our public spaces. It's really to have signage on all of the lanes so you can come here and say, hey, look, there's China One Kitchen or Nefi or the church or whatever points of interest maybe on the main street. And we want to really make sure that people come to our main street. We have a beautiful main street, and that's the goal of the project.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. So we do have a lot on our agenda. The next three speakers or questioners would be Lydia, Barbara, and then Paul. And if we could go to Lydia now.
All right, thanks. I'll just echo everybody else, and I won't go into the incredible presentation. So thank you, Prince, for doing the presentation. My question is, right now, around where the helix would be, I know Wendy's here, but the Rita bus is parked there. So I'm hoping that there's a relocation for the Rita bus, maybe in the bus lot or whatever. But I know that there were parked disabled vehicles there. So I was just wondering where that was going to be relocated to.
Okay. So we do plan to work with Rita and figure out a better space for them or where the bus can be parked. And there is still space within the ramp. There will still be space that where the Rita, so where the bike ramp comes onto the ground level, it's actually within the columns, where you can't right now park. It's too narrow. So it doesn't take away from the existing open space where Rita parks, but we will definitely find, if this space, let's say, turns out to be, because it's now more publicly usable, and we plan to put benches and stuff in here. Let's say it becomes that we don't want, parking in here. We'll definitely find a better place.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now, if you could unmute Barbara.
Hi, thank you. Lynn, you're not going to be surprised at what I have to say. I feel it's very important that we have a resolution because I always feel that things that happen in Roosevelt Island get lost and are not brought. This is something that's not just for Roosevelt Island. I think that the mainland will be using it and enjoying the beauty of it. I was waiting for other people to talk because I'm not a biker and I don't know whether bikers would like it, but everybody seems to. Visually, it's beautiful. And I would very much like a resolution to say that we approve and encourage this project to continue with all the whereases that have been mentioned. Sharon mentioned several, and that we can listen to what people say and use all the whereases for it. I hope you agree, Lynn.
Barbara, I totally agree with you. And what I'm going to do is let Paul speak, and then I'm going to go to Craig, and hopefully we can discuss that very
Great.
quickly. Okay, thank you. If you could unmute Paul.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Firstly, Sharon, you just made my my day. Thank you very much for those kind words. That was very nice. Made my week, actually. So thank you. I just want to say that I'm hugely in favor of this. Thank you, Prince, for all the work you've done on this. In particular, what I want to highlight, what I see as the most important thing you said at the start, was how you're designing everything for safety. I always, I get really annoyed when people say words like bicycle helmets and little big bells on bicycles and bike safety in the same sentence, because those things don't make people safe on bicycles or pedestrians for that matter. What makes people safe is good design. And if you could show me, please, the slide near the end, where you've got the view from above looking at, and you can see Main Street and then the two promenades. So the aerial view down, I think, was near the end. maybe misleading. It's not that important to get it. There's no need to find it. It's okay. The point I'm making is that what you're designing here is a really safe way that's the ideal for most people who want to live in a sane environment, where you're giving a great place for someone to walk and bicycle. I do both, away from where the cars are. The cars are in the middle, and I don't need to be there. And by the way, we're very safe here as well because of the enforcement we have. So I'm hugely in favor of this, and that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. If you could unmute Craig.
Hi again. I just wanted to get a little more information, if possible, about the timeline and the funding source for this. I was just curious about if there's anything that can be done to perhaps expedite this. I know that it's not necessarily the city that has any control in this case, and we're certainly more accustomed. Oh, that's right. I did see that.
Yeah. So
TAP funds.
Yep.
As an urban planner, transportation planner, I'm very familiar with them. So are the so the project was awarded, I guess, and the funds are in place?
That's right.
All right. And when is the start date contingent upon? Is there
it's contingent upon just all the DOT reviews. So let me see if I have that slide. The current stage, we are this is an old slide. So, but the current stage we are in is the draft DAD, the design report. We've sent the design report to state DOT 2 weeks ago, and we've already received comments. But the way state DOT sends you comments is that it's on rolling basis, so you never know when it's ending. You know, and we reach out to them saying, hey, is this the last comment? They're like, no, there's more coming. So it's, you know, we're ready and we're jumping on this as soon as we get the comments. We received comments, we already resolved them in a week. Now we're just waiting for more comments. And that's the period that I've actually asked my team to say, okay, what is the fastest we can do on our end that we can just send it back to DOT? And with that schedule, it's still fall of 2022 as start construction date. So what we want to do now is, I think once we get the DAD approved, which is the design approval documents, once we have that approved, our game plan was to actually reach out to DOT and say, look, how can we prioritize this project where it takes a little bit less time, or how can we work hand in hand, and maybe try to get, after DAD is kind of a straight construction document space, which can be expedited in my view. So we're going to work with them to see if we can do it a little bit faster. But that little bit faster might only really bring us to maybe September of 2022 and not any faster than that.
No, I appreciate that response. And then I also meant to ask earlier,
yep,
do you anticipate there being any potential impacts on vehicular traffic during construction?
We do not as of now, but we have to do kind of in-depth logistical analysis of this project to really understand that if there is vehicular during construction, it would be minimal because we're working within the helix. We're not going to be impacting the ramps that are on the sides, so it will be minimal. But you know, that's something that we can't really tell them around. We can only find out that as we go on to the later stages.
Okay, thank you.
So Craig, I'd like to propose a joint resolution in support of the bike ramp. Is that, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that would be fine. I think that would work.
Okay, so I believe I need to bring that then before the committee and see if we should vote on that. Is that correct?
Yes, I guess, is the resolution just in support of the project, or is there any other language that should be added to it? I guess leave that to any members that may want to propose language.
Right. I think Billy wanted, if you could unmute Billy, I think he wanted to make a comment there in terms of the resolution.
Yeah, I just would like there to be, if there's agreement on this, to have some language urging our state legislators and DOT to look into ways to expedite projects like this. I'm just shocked hearing, construction would begin in fall 2022, and then it would be a 2-year project. That is a lot of time for something to be under construction. The Empire State Building was built in a year and 45 days, and I know we're not living in 1930 anymore, but just something has to be done about the fact that important transportation infrastructure investments take 2 years. That should be unacceptable in 2021. So if that's well taken, I'd like to have some language to that effect. And I would appreciate if Assemblymember Seawright, perhaps Senator Serrano, would look into ways, whether it's legislative action, working with the state DOT to reform whatever it is that requires 2 years for a project as looks simple to me, at least as simple as this.
Even actually, I would appreciate that. I've been working on this since 2018.
Well, you're welcome then.
Thank you.
But if that's well taken, Lynn, I don't know, Lynn and Craig.
Yeah, no, I don't see that there's a problem. I'm just super excited to see this project moving forward, to see that they responded to the many inputs over these different periods that the community put in. And so actually, Judy's got her hand up. Can you unmute Judy?
Hello.
Hey, Judy.
Hi, how are you? Listen, I'm glad that so many people are so enthusiastic about this. I have a lot of problems with this. First of all, you come over the bridge on the north side of the bridge. You have to cut through the traffic pattern of people entering vehicular to get onto a helix. Unfortunately, knowing the habit of many of our New York bikers, they rather go down the big helix. They don't want to take be at the children's table and take the safe little helix. We've had terrible problems with bicycle safety on the island in the summer. And also cutting off, having people go only on the east side of the island means that they will not be anywhere near any commercial ventures. It will also damage our East Promenade, which is pretty much left alone now. And they'll be cutting space in back of the new buildings at 460 and 480 Main Street. They're going to have to widen the path there. And I just feel that this is a waste of our money and the city's money and the island's money, and that to put in such a extraordinarily expensive bike path. And I have this feeling that very few people are going to use it. I mean, if you count the number of bikers using most of our street and stuff, it peaks for a few days in the summer and the weekends, and that's it. And I really don't feel that REAC and our public safety staff will manage this and will be able to maintain it. Unfortunately, we're all here really big on capital projects, but we can never maintain them afterwards. It's wonderful to have capital money and do things, but I have long experience of things not being maintained because we don't get any money for them. And putting in all this new roadway and all of this new paving and all of these things, I just do not have confidence that REAC or Bike New York or whomever is going to be able to monitor them well, maintain them well, and it's just going to be another series of potholes. I mean, our main street is falling apart. You can barely drive on our street. They have not repaired the brick paving in years. But now, here we are going to build more paving. It's really a sham, and I really am upset because this whole project has been done in this pandemic era where there's very little public input, public meetings. I mean, public meetings, not just, there's no signage around, nothing. And I just don't feel that this is a proper project to start at this time. I thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Can I just respond to one thing, just to make sure people are clear in this? And I understand that there is definitely a local funding component to this, but the TAP program is a federal program. It's a grant. It's a competitive grant program. So those funds were awarded based on the application that was made in terms of what this program offered. And if this money wasn't going to Roosevelt Island for this project, it would go elsewhere. So if you want to look at it from that perspective, you're actually getting a bargain.
So, Craig, can you help me with what you think should be in the resolution?
Sure. I think in terms of whereas clauses, or just in terms of what therefore, I think we should just be saying community board aid supports the proposal as presented regarding the design for the proposed Helix bike ramp, Roosevelt Island bike ramp, or something like that. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. And I guess be it further resolved that we urge state officials to work with New York State DOT and whatever other appropriate entities to find means to potentially expedite the project however possible. Billy, since you were, does that work for you since you proposed the language?
Yeah, I think that does the trick.
Okay, I'm going to go quickly to Barbara, and then hopefully we can do a vote on this. Okay, Barbara?
Well, I'm seconding. I seconded and
Okay.
called the question and everything else. I think it's time.
All right, so let's do so Max, if I can have you do the official vote thing for us.
Sure. You mean reading everyone's that's his name?
Yes, so that's the Roosevelt Island Committee members and the Transportation Committee members, and which of them, if there's any that are voting against our resolution.
Sure. So if anyone is voting no, please raise your hand now. We'll wait a minute.
Or abstaining or not voting for cause.
Oh, yes, or abstaining or not voting for cause. Thank you.
I'm seeing none.
That's
So
right.
this is a unanimous approval on the proposed bike lane for the Roosevelt Island Helix. And I thank everybody for their involvement in this presentation. And thank you for coming at the last minute. Just so you all know, Prince agreed at really late last night to do this presentation. So I really appreciate that he was able to come in and do this for us this evening.
Oh, and Lynn, I think I have to read everyone's names. That's okay. Here very quickly. So I see Barbara and Craig, Billy, Marco, Sharon, Lynn, Russell, and I believe that's it.
Did you say Judy Birdie?
Oh, no, I didn't. Judy Birdie as well.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to, and I thank everyone for allowing us to bring this joint presentation together with the Transportation Committee. And what I'd like to do is move back. So I'm going to ask Prince if you're able to stay, and John to, we're going to go ahead with the Disabled Association.
Lynn, I'm so sorry. Probably one of the first times Judy Birdie has had to vote in our weird system. So Judy, now would have been the time that you would explain your vote. So really quickly retracting back to that vote.
Sorry, okay.
Judy, explain your vote.
No, I'm voting against. Okay.
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 All right, sorry about that. I didn't see your hand raised, Judy. I apologize. It didn't show up in my system. So we'll move the agenda forward to Wendy Hirsch and Carolyn Marco's presentation on the food pantry on Roosevelt Island. If you could unmute, if you could unmute Wendy and Carolyn Marco.
Sure. Wendy just click to unmute, and then I'm only seeing Wendy, actually.
Okay,
And Carolyn's on her phone.
she's on her phone.
Oh, I see. Go ahead, Karen. Oh, there you go.
So, hi, good evening. I'm Wendy Hirsch, for those of you who don't know. I'm the president of the Roosevelt Island Disabled Association. And whereas our mission has always been to enhance the lives of individuals with disabilities on Roosevelt Island by a lot of socialization, cultural events, resources. A year ago, everything sort of changed when the pandemic came, and where most of our activities involved the socialization piece. All of a sudden, there was no socialization. And what we noticed were a lot of our members were homebound or at risk for being out. So we decided that we needed to do some kind of food, get some food to them in their homes. It started out where we couldn't get anybody to deliver to Roosevelt Island. I mean, everybody thinks Roosevelt Island is Timbuktu. So we went to the school, to PS 217, who was giving out the breakfast, lunches, and eventually a second lunch, which they called dinner. And we started with 90 individuals delivering to their homes. And then it grew because more than just senior citizens and disabled, there were other members within our community that really, systems were compromised and really shouldn't have been out. And so we had a lot of great volunteers and we started delivering, and we soon realized that really wasn't enough food. It was a sandwich, it was a box of cereal, and although we were grateful, we had to look more. And thanks to Lynn introducing me to Carolyn Marco at Evangel Church, Pastor Marco, with 9 Million Reasons, we reached out to her at 12 o'clock one day, and I think this was in April. And I told her we didn't have food, we needed food for our community. And by 4 o'clock that afternoon, we had 550 bags sitting outside our senior center. So since the senior center was closed, we've been running out of the senior center, and up until August, we were delivering the breakfast, lunch, and dinners. We were doing the 550 bags from Carolyn. And then also we were getting from Dream Center a very small Saturday box for those who were living by themselves. We realized that a lot of food was being wasted. People, like, you got what you got, what was in the bag, what was in the box, that's what you got. Sandwiches were being thrown out, so we discontinued with the Board of Education. And we just started delivering the food. And in August, we turned it into a food pantry. We tried it out to see if it would work, which worked great because now people could pick out. Our pantry is a little bit different than others. We don't give a bag. We actually pile up tables with food. We undo bags, we undo boxes, and we put it all out for the community. And that grew, I believe that started at 100 people in August, and we're up to about 220. Every Friday, we open up the pantry. We have great volunteers within the community, and Pastor Marco has been wonderful providing us with food every single week, has not missed a week. So we are so grateful to them. We have been offered a space to continue this. So it's not just something that's going to end. We're in talks also with the CNC is the one who provides us the space now, and hopefully will provide us the space that they've been looking at. We've also been in talks with RIAC, who is in support of the pantry. So we're really looking forward to continuing to help the community.
Carolyn, would you like to add anything?
I am just so grateful that you guys have allowed us to be able to do this. I love Roosevelt Island. I love what you guys do over there. I love helping the veterans and the seniors. And I have to tell you, Wendy and her crew, they're amazing. They've been there every week. I mean that, it's because once you start something, you can't just stop it. People are coming every week, so I told her, she asked me and I said, no, I'm with you on this. I love being able to help Roosevelt Island, and I love being able to give to you guys. And so she and her crew have been amazing. And the men that show up to help us take all the stuff off the truck, I have to tell you, you guys are awesome. And I love being able to help you. And any way we can, we want to be there for you. And so just thank you for letting us do this. It's such a blessing and a privilege.
What I want to say at this point is Carolyn and her group have done incredibly amazing things in supporting food insufficiency during the pandemic. And what you don't know is that she's experienced some personal tragedies over the last year. And I personally have been absolutely impressed with what she's done during this really horrific personal time for her. And, you know, both Wendy and Carolyn have done such an amazing job for Roosevelt Island that I just wanted them to get, to be able to talk a little bit about their story and for other people to know what they've done for our community. I see a hand up with Billy, if you could unmute Billy.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Carolyn. One question: if people want to volunteer, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Well, we have the Facebook group page, or they can get in touch with me. I can give you the number. And I have one person who's in charge of volunteers. So actually, Lynn, you can give the number afterwards.
Okay. Yeah.
Great.
One thing I say is I did leave out that CERT, Emergency Management Services. This is really important. They came to our aid in the beginning, helping us deliver the food to people into each individual home before we did the pantry. And it actually, Emergency Management Services made it the model for other communities, other, residential communities. So they were really impressed, and they keep sending us CERT members for the past year.
Great, thank you.
Do I have any other questions? Anyone else would like to ask either Wendy or Caroline a question about their amazing work? Okay, thank you, ladies, so much. And thank you on behalf of our community for all that you've been doing. I want you to hear that we greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So moving the agenda along, our next presentation is by John from the Roosevelt Island Operating Corporation. Can you unmute John for us, please?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good evening, John. Thank you for joining us this evening.
No problem. No problem. So I guess the agenda item is an update on the CPP projects.
Yes.
So let me work north to south. So on the north side of the island, recently we received the bids for the Lighthouse Tower. We're in the process of evaluating them. We're hoping to present to the board a decision at the April board meeting. The duration of that project is 3.5 to 4 months. So we're looking for the tower renovations to be completed by late August, early September. Kind of ties into the Nellie Bly project. We have 2 of the faces have already been fabricated, and the remaining 2 are in process. And I think the Nellie Bly project will also be completed at the end of September. And those 2 projects kind of are in sync. Moving further south, the next project is the comfort station over at McManus Field. The spectator section is 90% complete. We're in the process of putting some topsoil down and doing some landscaping, and that should open fairly shortly. The comfort station itself, I believe, will be completed and done and open by the end of April, mid-May. So that project is moving along pretty well also. Motorgate, the next project, the waterproofing has been completed. All the spalling work has been completed. All the repairs on the T-beams have been completed. The facade work has been completed. We're currently inside the stairwells, and we're going to be working on the stairwells. It's probably a 2 to 3 month repair on the stairwells, where we're going to be repairing the skylights, doing some spalling and the structural repairs inside the stairwells. Both McManus and Motorgate are on budget, and they're going to come in slightly early, I believe. Going further down, the youth center just passed the FDNY inspection last week. The youth center should be opening. We're starting to move in as of this past Monday. We should have that space open in the near term. It looks really nice. The contractor did a great job. Sports park RFP we awarded in the last board meeting. The board approved the contract for the renovation of sports park. That project is going to start the renovation April 1st. The duration there is a year. It's a phased project that includes renovations of the lobby, the gymnasium, the multi-service room, the weight room, and the pool area, all the locker rooms and bathrooms, as well as the HVAC system and the filtration system in the pool. So we're trying to phase that project so we have minimal impact on operations. We're starting with on the west side. I'm going to move to the east side. Learning lab program will end June 30th. We should be finished the lobby by the end of June. Move into the gym, finish the gym by the end of August, and have the pool start sometime in September. So the pool will be open we're looking for the pool to be open for the entire summer. Moving further down, we have Hope Memorial is finished. We're looking to schedule a grand opening for the project. And we're just waiting for the weather to break a little bit so that we have some better weather so people can be outside. Also, social distancing issues are something that we were considering because of the spike in the pandemic in the January, February timeframe. So in the near term, we're going to have an opening and a ribbon cutting for Hope Memorial. South Point Park, the riprap project, the east side, all the in-water work was done. We got all that done before the moratorium was in place at the end of February, which was ahead of schedule. All the inland work is going to be continuing. We're slightly ahead of schedule. We're on budget. There's some really nice work being done on the east side relative to getting the path done. And the riprap itself really looks nice. It's really tied in well to the Four Freedoms Park. They've done a good job, and they've been a great general contractor to work with. The elevator is moving along. It's the one project we have a slight issue with in the respect that the glass was ordered and fabricated by, I think it was an Italian company. It was definitely in Europe. I don't remember if it was Italian or Spanish company. They've been impacted by COVID, and we have a delay in getting the glass facade for the elevator. And that project is slightly behind schedule. We don't have any impact on cost, but we think that we're going to have at least one. The south elevator should be open sometime in September, October. We'll then demo the existing elevator and put the north side elevator up after that, probably done by the end of the year. And those are the projects, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So if you could unmute Judy, she has her hand up.
Hi, John. One thing, REAC is moving right out of 591. Where are you placing your offices? I missed this at the REAC board meeting. Where are you relocating your offices to?
Yeah, so the lease ends in July. And there's a project that we have on tap. It's a small project for the installation of dark fiber. The dark fiber has to be put in place first before we can move the server, which is located in 591. Prince is actually the project manager on that project. The project kicked off. The contract was signed today. We're hoping to have the dark fiber in place in around 2 months. We need to be out of 591 by July. We're in the process right now of identifying locations for the people that are located in 591. So there's a couple of places. The youth center is going to move out of the sports park. We're seeing if that's viable, even though we have renovations going on. We have space in the cultural center, and we do have some space in 680 that we're looking at as far as having swing space in today's environment with social distancing and working remotely. We're looking at using swing space at 680 to locate some of the people. So it's not the filing is more of an issue than the people. We really don't have that many people over there at 591. We have 5 or 6 people in finance. We have 3 people in legal, And we have HR, so it's not like we're moving 50 people. It's 15 people that we need to move out of there in total. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for John? Seeing no hands raised, John, I thank you so much for joining us this evening and presenting the REOX capital projects. I think most people are happy to see the scaffolding down at Motorgate in the community and to be able to have that sidewalk free again. I think people are really happy about that. Probably a little disappointed that the elevator project in Manhattan is being delayed, but we've been hearing about those issues with the glass from the elevator. So we're hoping that it gets expedited for you.
I appreciate it, and thank you for inviting us to the meeting. It's our pleasure to present. And questions or any comments?
Thank you. So I'm going to move the agenda along to Justin and big reuse, and to have a quick discussion about. I would like us to do a motion.
But
Hi, Justin. How are you?
hi guys, how are you doing?
Thank you for waiting so patiently. We appreciate that. So what I'm asking is that Justin has been working really hard with Community Board 2 and Community Board 1 in Queens, and they have put forward letters to the Department of Park and Recreation in both Queens and Manhattan. And I would like Community Board 8 to put in a letter and a resolution in support of big reuse getting their lease extended. I think that that's the main flux of the letter. Is that correct, Justin?
Yeah, exactly. We're asking, so I think last time I came and talked to you guys for a little bit about what we've been up to. You know, you guys are great supporters. We love Roosevelt Island, love working on Roosevelt Island. And our composting program has been around for a decade underneath the Queensborough Bridge. And the Parks Department, the commissioner of the Parks Department recently has made a push to evict these sort of nonprofit partnerships that have been composting on parks land. Us for a decade, Lower East Side Ecology Center for almost 30 years, Red Oak Farm also for about a decade. The commissioner just decided he didn't like composting on parks land. And this sort of model that we've developed, which is these, working with residents to bring their food scraps, composting it with leaves and wood chips from parks. And then we actually compost it and give it back to parks. So Queens Parks takes about 80% of the compost we make to use back in Queens Parks land. Or other community groups, anyone can come get it. Street Tree Care, community gardens, Roosevelt Island gardens. I think you guys produce a lot of your own compost, but I think we've definitely given you some over the years. And so we have support from Queens Community Board 1, Community Board 2, the elected officials, Jimmy Van Bramer, Donovan Richards, Gail Brewer, pretty much every elected official we've approached has supported it. I just got off a call with Senator Gennaris's and Kavanaugh's office today. They're going to introduce state legislation that allows composting, hopefully, on parks land. So we're working with them on that. So it's just this huge effort to get parks to listen to the community and its staff. I mean, we work with park staff to compost too. Like they bring us leaves from Western Queens. So what we're asking the community boards that we've been really active in is to issue a letter of support. And I sent a sample that the Community Board 1 and Community Board 2 samples to you guys, if you want to use those, to basically to give us a long-term license. Right after I talked to you guys, I think Parks came out with a plan. Then they're going to be redoing the park, the baby Queensbridge Park. So there's a park right between Queensbridge houses and the Queensborough Bridge. And there's a strip of land there that, has been sort of neglected for many years. And so, after Parks is started using that as an excuse to kick us off and sort of drive a wedge between us and the residents of Queensbridge. But luckily that didn't happen. We had Parks had an open hearing where the public could give input. They had 11 breakout groups. Every breakout group came back and was like, we want composting in the park. So, we have that level of support. There is, if you go to, I'll put this in the chat if you haven't done it yet, but there is, you can still give Parks input for that strip of land, the Baby Queensbridge Park improvements. And we've been asking folks, our supporters, to basically, oops, can I do it in the chat?
So it'll go to our,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, so there's a comment section there. You can put comments in also. And so so it'd be great. I mean, I'm basically just coming, we've worked with Roosevelt Island and done for years. We'd love to keep doing it. One of the things that Parks wanted to do was move us. And they were like, well, they want to move into our site operations. They're not even turning our composting site into an operation. I could do a share screen quickly if you guys want some visuals. I don't know how much longer, if you want to just go for it, move forward, or I can show you.
I know that we've been talking to you guys for a while. I think what we haven't done is take that next step and do a resolution and a letter. So I just want to see if there's any questions, and then I'd really like to move toward that. So do we have any questions for Justin? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. Can I get a motion to do a resolution in support of and a letter for big reuse? Can I have that seconded? Thank you guys so much. We will take the 2 community board letters and we will put our pieces into them and send them to the appropriate commissioners and do a resolution for community board A2 in support of your project.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you,
I really appreciate it.
Showing up. Thank you so much, and appreciate being patient.
Well, yeah, but you guys, I appreciate you guys on the community board. You have to put a lot of time in for community input, and it's a lot of work. So I appreciate the community boards and all your work.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to move our agenda on to the next item, which is about Kohler Hospital. And I'd like to, I'm sorry, what's that?
Before you do, we just need to read the names of the folks who are still here for that vote.
Thank you.
Max, do you want to do that?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So we have Lynn, Russell, Judy, Marco, and I think that's it.
And Sharon Pope.
And Billy, is Billy?
Oh, yes, Sharon Pope. No, I don't see Billy though.
Okay.
Right, Will? Sorry.
No, I don't see Billy.
Okay.
All right, and please let us know if you are voting no. Seeing no raised hand, we'll go with a unanimous approval of the support for big reuse. All right, so I apologize to Cornell and their presentation. I didn't expect our meeting to take this long, but I would like you to unmute Jane and Niti.
Jane is unmuted and Niti, go ahead.
Hi.
So if you guys could talk about what you're doing at Kohler Hospital with your program.
Yeah. And did Vince, well, I saw Vince was here.
Yes.
Okay.
So he's going to talk in a little bit. He's going to talk after you guys. So go ahead.
Okay, got it. All right. I'll share my screen.
And I guess I should just say that Niti is the creative lead at the Maker Lab at Cornell Tech. Works with Kohler a lot. Thanks for having us, Lynn.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you guys for being here.
Oh, I don't know if I'm sharing it right.
Yeah, you did. It's shared.
Okay. All right, so it was good to kind of listen in on this. It's really amazing that you all are here discussing so many issues related to community. So I thought I'll just give you an overview of my work at Cornell Tech and over the period of time, how I have come to know folks at Kohler and what inspires me every day by working with them. So I'll kind of give you, I guess some of you know and most of you might not know, the Cornell Tech campus Maker Lab is kind of this small 1,500 square feet of digital lab with a lot of different tools, which allows our students, faculty, postdoctoral students, and PhD students to do their research related to anything related to digital fabrication. I moved, when I joined Cornell Tech, it was 2016 fall. And we moved our family with 2 kids on this little island, Roosevelt Island. My husband had grew up in New York, but had never been on the island. And when we landed here, it right away kind of felt like really welcoming. And at home, we started living on the north end of the island, started work on the south end of the island. And in between, there was our kids' school. And it was really a very different way of kind of even starting your life, right? In a whole new state from California. Soon we kind of started knowing our neighbors. It was either at the farmer's market or at the park at our kids' school. And soon after that, I met Open Doors members through my husband, who also is a professor at Cornell Tech, that he said, you should come meet these people because they are doing these creative projects and you might be able to help them voluntarily with some graphic work. And that's how I ended up meeting all the folks at Open Doors. And it was right away a click in between of that this is amazing. There are so many creative people around the island, and I wanted to bring Open Doors into Maker Lab and to see what happens. What if we were to allow access for projects, right? And let them use the tools which we had. And what happens when you bring people from community to inside the Cornell Tech and let them give them specific projects, and what happens when our student volunteers comes in contact with community and work on that. So out of that, the project which came out of, which I'm working on, is I call it Craft at Large, which is a long time research area of what I have worked on. But this kind of developed more after coming in at Cornell Tech. And what it is right now is kind of threefold case. And I won't go into too much detail, but it's a hacker space during the fall where we bring in community members inside the lab and we give them tools and make small teams to work on the project. And I also teach a course in spring, which is a 3-credit course where I do onboard community members into the classroom, which started with just 6 weeks of program with six students. Now it is a 15-week program with 18 students. And this time I have about 5 Kohler residents and 2 other Roosevelt Islanders and 18 of Cornell Tech students. So these are some images from the past when I met Pete and Vince. They were part of my class in spring 2019, I believe. And since then, I feel like it started to create that community of people who came through the Maker Lab. I saw them around the island, and then they introduced me to other people. And it just became this very symbiotic relationship where we had to continue this program in a way. So in last fall, we started a hackerspace where we took on a really long-term project, which is not a class, but Khadija, who had done an amazing work with Kohler residents, Open Doors members in Word2RI, and she said, I want to build something tangible, and these are my ideas. And we were able to kind of do this project where everyone just kind of came together for 9 weeks in Maker Lab. And we were able to create this vision of Vars, who is also a Kohler resident and Open Doors member, who had done these portraits of 8 of the Open Doors member. And we wanted to tell a story. So there were these poetry pieces, which was audios. And we were able to kind of connect that all together. And put that onto, I now am lucky to have this piece permanently put outside the Maker Lab at Cornell Tech campus. It was, I came to know all these 8 members really well. And unfortunately, we lost Roy in this pandemic during this horrible COVID thing. But yeah, so this is something which I think as an educator, as a designer, I have found really, really impactful for my students to have this access to these creative minds inside Kohler, inside the Kohler nursing home. And it has since then has now turned into this every spring, fall, summer is something where I meet more and more new people. I met Shannon last year through this program and found out more about her. And for fall 2020, we decided to do more of a virtual where we did a Skillshare videos where I was able to meet Francine and Emmanuel and Ms. Arceo, kind of sharing their work with me. So this has turned into, I would say, a really great partnership, and I'm really thankful for even meeting this creative souls inside of Kohler, and I hope that we can continue this partnership with more support from inside and outside of Kohler. And this summer, actually, I will be able to onboard one of the community members as a maker in residence in the Maker Lab, who will be working with a full-time PhD student who has been awarded a PyTech Impact Fellow Award to work with me on a craft at large. So I'm really looking forward to kind of establish really strong long-term roots with my friends and colleagues at Kohler. So that's it.
What a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much.
Of course.
So I've been talking about all of these creative people at Kohler and how important their voices are, but I think you did a great demonstration in presenting what I've been talking about. So I really, really appreciate that. And does anybody have any questions for either Jane or Anita? Okay, I thank you guys for joining us this evening. That was a fantastic presentation. And I really think it gave people an opportunity to see some of the really amazing things that have been happening with the collaboration with Kohler. So I'd like to move the agenda on, and hopefully we still have Vince if he's been patient enough to stay on with us. And He's going to give a little talk, and hopefully we can also show a very quick slideshow on Saturday, this past Saturday's vigil with Kohler Hospital. So
Let me get that up on the other screen.
Yes. Did you want to show the slideshow first, or?
Can you guys, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Vince.
Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Did you want me to just slowly go through the pictures?
Yes, please.
Sure, sounds good.
And I just want to comment, I'm sorry, I know you've got some things to say, but this again was a collaboration with some of the artists that Nita was showing you, who've been involved with a relationship with the people of Kohler Hospital. And they created this amazing light display for last Saturday to help amplify the voices within Kohler. Next. So for the first time in a year, these gentlemen and I think one or two women were able to, I don't see Francine, but I believe she was also able to come out and join us in a very safe, social distanced way.
That appears to be it.
Thank you for that, Max. And if you want to go ahead, Vince.
Yes. First of all, I would like to thank you, Lynn, for helping us organize this nice event that went on Saturday. I would like to thank the community that came out. I would like to thank Russell and Community Board 8 that came out. And yeah, helping us get our voices heard. And still a little ride to go, because a year later the lies still continue. And yeah, but I don't plan on stopping until nursing home residents get the dignity and the respect that we deserve and treated like human beings. And thank you again, everybody.
Welcome, Vince. Does anybody have any questions for Vince? What I would like to say is kind of amplify a little bit of what you're saying, and that some of the relationships that developed out of the interaction with Cornell, some of the relationships that developed out of the relationship with the Garden Club, and when you guys started really being locked down and going through the horrible experience, most of us knew of you or knew of new people within Kohler, and we were able to get people together to start a Gmail account that's called Friends of Kohler. And that's a way that you can learn about what's going on within Kohler. And I was very pleased that Community Board 8 stepped up and facilitated a task force that has been addressing some of the issues that are going on within Kohler Hospital. And I just want to thank Russell for taking over that task force and for his engagement since January. I believe that the events that the community has been able to do, the letters that we've been writing, and have garnished more attention to what really is going on as far as the people in Kohler.
Yes.
Does anyone have anything else that they would like to add? And okay, Russell, you could be unmuted.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say it was a great event. It was a very moving event, and I just really wanted to give credit to you, Lynn, and to Vince and everybody who was part of organizing the vigil on Saturday, because it was again, it was very powerful. And you know, in terms of the task force, obviously the work continues, and I just want to recognize the work of everybody on the task force who's been involved with it much longer than I have. And so thank you to everybody who's doing that. And finally, I just want to say, you know, Vince, it was nice to get a chance to see you and the other residents in person, albeit at a distance. And obviously we're all hoping for a time when we can actually meet properly in person and do real visitation that way. So hopefully soon, and we will keep working at that.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could, Max, if you could unmute Feluke.
Thank you. Just the same thing, to echo a very big thank you. I was there. It was really moving. It was great to see the spirit of community, to see the residents come out and speak, and Vince, Francine, everyone. Thank you. This is very encouraging, and I believe it is a good practice that other communities could learn from Roosevelt Island, and that could be documented and transferred. So I want to say thank you again, and please keep it up, Vince and everyone, and Lynn. Thank you.
And I just want to add, Feluke is one of our representatives from Friends of Kohler. So thank you for joining us this evening, Feluke. And if you could unmute Judy, Max.
Okay, good evening. I felt very reminiscent when I saw Jane and Neeti. I did two wonderful programs with the Senior Center at Cornell Tech, and we miss you. And we miss having the Makers Lab and all the wonderful relationships we established there. I'm the head of the Kohler Auxiliary and also a member of the community board, but I only speak for the auxiliary. The auxiliary has been at Kohler since, I think, 1952. We represent every single resident in Kohler. We provide whatever is needed. We provided health and beauty aids for every
Judy,
single
you
person.
made this presentation at our last meeting. Was there
Well,
something you'd like to add?
Yes, I'd like to add that we are providing computer support, a lot of support. And I want people to know that the residents of Kohler are not abandoned. They're not being left forsaken. There are many activities. The therapeutic recreation and the auxiliary are constantly working.
So Judy, you did make this presentation.
Well, I really think it's very rude that you only want to hear one side of the story. I mean, I think a few minutes of equal time will not hurt anyone. But I just want the community to know that Kohler has an auxiliary that's a 501c3, and that everyone is invited to support every single resident at Kohler. Thank you, Lynn, since you don't want to hear it.
Thanks, Judy. Does anyone else have any questions about any of the presentations this evening? Seeing none, may I have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Does anyone have old business that they'd like to discuss? Okay, seeing no hands, does anyone have new business that they would like to discuss? Seeing none, I thank everybody for joining us this evening. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
See Shannon.
And do I have a second? I'll second that. Oh, there, we got a second. Thank you, everyone, for your presentations and for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it. And we will get those resolutions and motions out to everyone so that they can see them before we present them. Thank you so much and have a great evening.